What's up, Addicts? I'm Michael.
And I'm Josh.
And today we're doing a review of Arifureta Volume 2.
And I can't wait to start talking about it, because we got a lot to go over. I guess first we wanted to start with just talking about Hajime, the main protagonist of this book, because we went into a little bit about his character in our review for Volume 1, but his character changes so drastically that we kind of just wanted to recap him and who he is. So right after he gets done with, or I guess you could say middle way through his trek through the dungeon, he changes a lot. But by the time we start with this book, he's more of an extrovert, I should say, in terms of his insults, as opposed to he used to, when people did stuff, he would keep it bottled up and just kind of say stuff randomly to his face. And now he's, pure, savage in talking to people and just not giving a crap about what they think or what they say. One of the other things is that previously we saw him, he would care about people. He went out of his way to save one of his classmates in the dungeon. Also with Kaori talking about the story of when he was apologizing to somebody to make sure somebody wasn't getting hurt. Yeah, that's gone. He only cares about two things, and it's his only two goals in life now. I guess technically three. One's to stay alive, obviously. The other one is to get back to Japan, and then the third one is to protect you. Those are the only three things he cares about, and it's pretty evident because if it's not any of those, he'll either not touch it or he'll kill it to get it out of his way. One of the other things that is, I guess, more focused on towards the beginning or the middle part of the last volume and this volume is his class, which is his synergists. And we get to see just more of the stuff he makes, especially with the ending of the last book. He gets a bunch of new tools. He gets his prosthetic arm that can shoot shotgun out of his elbow. He's got a needler shotgun in his wrist. He's got his demon eye that can see through walls and locate magic core, so he can actually shoot magic out of the air with his revolvers, which he does have a bunch of guns. He's got his railgun revolvers. He's got a missile launcher, and then he's got a rifle and a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to go too much into that, but he's got a bunch of cool stuff that he switches off between the book. So with that, I'm going to let Michael talk about more of the side characters that we get to see in this volume.
So yeah, we have basically she's a side character in this book. You have Shia. She is a rabbit person, I guess.
Yeah, bunny
person. Bunny.
Girl.
I don't know. And you get to see her. She's got some unique qualities, including a ability to see in the future. Especially, there's limitations on her ability that you'll see in the book and how that's used. And then you get to see a couple more people. She's probably the main addition in this one, even though the Yu and Hajime do not appreciate her for the majority of the book. I would say
it's pretty comical in that and how they first come about, which I'm not going to.
Yeah, we will not.
Sorry,
yeah,
because I'll let you say it.
And then we have Melody, who is an individual that isn't in charge of the dungeon, I guess we could say, and you get to have an extended kind of conversation, I guess, with her, and you get to see her personality come out in the dungeon. And then you have a shopkeeper who is an interesting individual, one of the few that Hajime is scared of / wants to avoid.
Yeah, because he's physically, or I guess appearance-wise, is a bit unique from everybody else he's encountered in this world.
Yes, and we'll see if that individual comes back. And then you have a continuation of the classmates. So we do have particular one individual that Hajime saved, kind of the classmates dealing with the death of Hajime and how that's going to affect them, and continuing to go down in the dungeon and be super slow and weak. So,
and it's ironic because they're not technically wrong, because the one they knew is technically dead.
Yeah.
But getting on with that, we'll give you just a little bit of idea of what the plot is. So it takes place right after the first volume, right after getting out of the labyrinth that Oscar made, and they're traveling to the next location that they know that there's a dungeon. And on their way there, they're going through a gorge, and they meet Shia, who they're not particularly fond in interacting with, but since she has her foresight ability, she sees like a future where they're a big part of her life, or at least sees them helping them in a regard. So circumstances lead them to making a deal for in exchange for her and her people leading him to the dungeon's entrance. He needs to help her and her tribe, specifically keeping them alive. And so we get to see that and more, I guess, interaction with the Beastman territory. You get to see kind of how their system operates and some minor interactions with them and a little bit of setup. We get to see the dungeon that they introduced at the beginning. I guess the one in the Beast territory. We don't stay there very long because they figure out that they can't actually access it until they complete some of the other ones. So they actually leave the territory, which at this point Shia becomes part of the trio, and we get to see them go across the gorge again and finding another dungeon, which is Miletti's dungeon, and you get to see them conquer through that. And we get to see a little bit more of the classmates inside stuff. But it's basically just the monster of the abyss, the vampire princess, and the worthless rabbit all coming together. So
That's a pretty good summary. Yeah, and this one, unlike the first one, it's not... I would not say the majority of the book is spent in the dungeon. You actually get more world building as they're traveling around, and so that's kind of different from the first book, where the majority of what happens in the book happens in the dungeon. This one, it's kind of like a pit stop almost. I mean, it is a major event that happens, but it's not 75% of the book.
yeah, which that's one of the unique and kind of fun aspects of this book, I would say. Getting on to some of our favorite moments. Do you want to start us off, Michael?
Sure.
Or, I mean, it doesn't matter. I can go.
I'll go.
right.
So, I'd really like the interaction with the in the second dungeon, where they have it's very different than the first dungeon, and also you have the limitation of them. I guess it's kind of a minor spoiler, but I could say it, of not using magic in the dungeon to solve the puzzles. So you have them at a disadvantage regarding that. Besides that, there's a scene where when he first meets knights of one of the kingdoms that's trying to mess with them and stop them from progressing or doing whatever. That interaction's really great. And then I like some of the interactions in the town. It's just humorous, pretty much. All their interaction with other people in the town, when people are trying to mess with him, or when he's trying to become an adventurer and they don't understand how powerful he is. And so those were some of the moments that I really enjoyed in the.
Yeah, for me, it's really hard to pick 3 moments specifically to talk about, just because it's one of those series that there's so many great moments just throughout the whole thing. So you basically just have to pick and choose some if you're wanting to make a video. But I do have a couple I wanted to talk about. First was, it's kind of early on. We get to see, the rabbit people tribe that she is from. And, Hajime, he doesn't really care, but he does feel a little bit of sympathy, I guess you could say, towards them. So he wants to help them in some regard. And some of those interactions is, there's one in particular where he's helping them overcome one of the negative, aspects that he sees them having, which is pacifism. And there's a scene with a flower with one of the boy rabbit people. And his reaction to that is just hilarious. I'm trying to keep it spoiler-free, but he's going around shooting stuff and cursing, so it's pretty comical. Another one that I really liked was when they actually get to the town. This is probably towards the middle part of the book, and it's the first time that they really get back to civilization, I guess you should say. And they're checking into a hotel, and I just love seeing, you get to see a little moment of kind of you and Shia playing a tug of war with Hajime, and it's not so. The interaction itself is really funny, but then seeing everybody in the place reacting to it is just because then you got the women that are like, oh, and then you get the men that are like, oh, freaking want to kill that guy. I'm so jealous. And it's great. And it's something I think kind of is going to play a really good dynamic between those three.
Yeah, I know you were talking, because we were talking before you read this book about how you were worried about them adding additional female characters to the second book, because I told you there was going to be a new character. What's kind of your... What is your evaluation of like Shia and her addition and everything else?
Well, I mean, for me, it wasn't just so much the female characters. I was worried about all the side characters, because in the first book, the only side characters we really get is his classmates, who I found super just boring and unlikable, which I think that is how they're supposed to be written. So the author did a good job, getting that point across, because I really don't like any of them, except maybe one. But in this book, we get to see a lot of different side people, specifically with, Shia and her tribe, and then the territory they're from and things like that. And I think they did a really good job. They definitely stepped up their game a lot. It was one of the things that I was worried about going into this volume, and it was completely blown away when they introduced Shia, because I at like first glance, like Shia seems like, I guess for some people it might come off as kind of annoying. But given how, you and Hajime's characters are, it just plays off as comedy. And I just love seeing his nonchalant, like, I don't give a shit attitude towards her. And so I really liked her character, though. She's something I think adds a good dynamic, especially with this book. You get to see them entering a dungeon, like Michael said, they can't really use magic, or they don't use magic very much. She kind of helps balance that out, I would say. And so there's definitely parts in it where it's not just something that you can see as just she's another girl to have in the story. She actually has practical use in the story. And overall, I think I liked all of the side characters in this one. At least I wasn't annoyed with any of them, which is a huge step up from the last one. Well, I guess, except for that little part we touch on the classmates, I still don't care about them. But, yeah, that's about what I'd say with that. I guess one of the last things I'll say for just, like, favorite moments, though, is it's throughout the whole book. And I just, like I said, I just love seeing Shia get tortured, or tormented, I should say. There's just a lot of moments, like especially when they're meeting him, like she is like trying to grab on like their I guess 4-wheeler motorcycle thing, and Hajime is just like, ew, and then just shocks her with lightning field, and then, like until she just falls off. So it's just stuff like that. It's pretty appreciating. And also, when I was reading the book, I counted how many times they said her name, like like Hajime and you actually said her name, because at the beginning of the book when they meet her, they refuse to address her by her name, and out of like like a 300-400 page book, whatever, they only say it like 21 times, and I just thought that hilarious because she's literally introduced in like probably the first chapter.
Yeah, it's pretty great dynamic, and you get a lot of use of rubber bullets in this volume, actually.
Yeah, that's another thing that plays into Hajime's character. He just shoots people that he doesn't like, and even though like there's some situations where they're like the people around him like, don't kill him. He's like, okay, fine, I'll just hit him with a rubber bullet that's basically going hard enough to where it can cause concussions.
Yep.
So
that's his character.
Yeah. Which I guess getting on to our rating, Michael, you want to start us off with rating?
Yeah. This one's kind of difficult because we've done a lot of light novels on the channel following Don Machi from Volume 6 to Volume 11, and I haven't really given it anything a 10 yet. And I think eventually when we get through all of the Arifuretas, they may be a 10 in there, but I would say this book's probably a 9 for me, or an FFA. Graphic. Now I got to put the graphic on twice. But I think it's an FFA. I think it's a solid book. You have an introduction of a new character that you would like. There's not too much of an overemphasis on the class. The only thing I would say that doesn't make it a 10 for me is the fight scenes are cool, but there's no real huge looming threat in this one, I would say. At least not that we've found out about yet, I don't think. And we do have, we still have to figure out the mystery of who are evil in the class, besides the individual who tried to kill Hajime. So
Yeah. For my rating, it's the same. I give it an FFA. Well, I want to clarify though, because we did the first volume before we came up with the finalized thing. So when we said FFA in the previous review of Volume 1, it was R10. So now it's a 9. Just wanting to clarify that. So like to me, the first volume was a 10. This volume is an FFA a 9. I really did enjoy it. Kind of the same thing with Michael. There's really good action in it. There's no, I guess you could say there's a little bit less action in it, which just for me that's probably what brings it down. But I did like how the side characters, they're bringing in more of the world building, and that was the thing I was most feared about, or just on the even. I was like, oh, I really hope it doesn't drop down to like a 6 for me because they started introducing it. But they worked out really well. They have likable characters, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of those come in, seeing what the threats are going to be. And overall, I just thought it was really good in terms of balancing, because in the first volume, I think we have a pretty good balancing of his power. You get to, understand that he is a very powerful individual, but he's not just, nonchalantly taking out every single, big boss, Like, for instance, like the last enemy he fights at the very end of the first dungeon, he struggles a bit, even though he's really powerful. And I think they did that in a believable way in this one when he gets into the second dungeon, and kind of explaining on why he's not easily getting through some of the higher levels or lower levels. But that'd be that for me. I guess that will conclude this video. We can't wait to talk about Volume 3, and hopefully it won't take very long. Because there's a lot of gaming stuff coming up, so we might start shifting more towards that, but we're going to still try to do the light novels as several of them come out really soon. Especially a Danmachi, which, speaking of which, if you want to check out any of our other videos, we do have a Danmachi video coming up very soon. We also have some gaming stuff that's going to be coming in. Nothing too big right now, just more of the smaller games that we've been playing. And if you want to follow us on social media or listen to our podcast, those links will be in the description. But anyway, guys, we'll see you later.
Peace.